Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one is titled, Wanna Be Nasty Get Barred from Local Restaurants. Long story, this started in November 2019. My daughter works at a huge chicken place where they say, my pleasure. She was front of house lead one Saturday and I stopped by to grab food for the family. As I was waiting for my food, there was a line out the door and a registered opened up and the lady, at the front of line would not move. Cashier called to her and just stood there. The guy behind her, assuming she didn't see or hear the cashier, pointed the open space to Cashier smiled and waved. Made a face and an extremely racist comment very loudly. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone stopped and stared. My daughter stood shocked for a moment, then remembered she was in charge, so she walked around and stood in front of and calmly explained this is a privately owned restaurant and there were lots of children present. My daughter did not yell, but she didn't blink either. She stared in the eye. You need to leave, none of my team will be serving you today. Customers actually cleared a path to the door. Doubled down and started screaming horrible names at my daughter, who didn't blink. All the staring contests with her brothers had prepared her for this moment. When my daughter refused to yell back, spit in her face. Now I was about to unleash Mama Bear when the owner came out. He showed a printout from the camera system of her face and a list, then said, "Ma'am, I own 12 restaurants here in town. Here is a full list and this copy of the photo that all of my employees will have burned into their brains. Consider yourself banned from any establishment I own. Also, if my employee chooses, I will call the police." My daughter declined, and the lady left. Fast forward to 2020 and lockdown. Takeout and delivery only. Has been trying to get service at several of the restaurants on the list and have been denied several times. Couple of times new people served her. She thought that with drive up surly they would serve her now. Well, now they have personal information and decline orders made by her online, on apps, and even if she drives up. My daughter gave the cashier the pleasure of walking up to OL's car in the curbside and handing her money back. Even adding, "Have a nice day, ma'am." I think that was the best petty revenge. Moral, be nice to people who can feed you, they have long memories. Next one is titled, Yes, You Really Do Need Your ID, Ma'am. So a little bit of background, this happened late summer, early autumn of last year. I work at a chain clothing store, the name of which rhymes with bold gravy, which, in response to the pandemic, has expanded our online shopping options. You can buy online and pick up in store for no charge, but you have to present either an ID or email receipt when you pick it up. This legally covers our butts and also ensures we don't give your package to someone who isn't you. All of this information will be relevant. So I was working a closing shift and it was about 8 p.m. I'm folding clothes to the side of the store when a customer, who I will refer to as Karen, despite that not being her name, walks up to me and says she needs to pick up an order. No problem. I'll take care of that for you right over here. I walk Karen over to our online pickup stand section of the store where the online orders are waiting to be picked up and ask for her name. As we're walking over, she mentions that she actually has 2 separate orders to pick up. This will also be relevant later. She gives me her name and I grab her packages, then prepare to check her out. Now, company protocol is that we absolutely cannot give an order to a customer without them providing either ID or the email receipt. So, like I've done dozens of times before, I ask her for that without even looking up as I finish checking her package out. I didn't have to provide that last time. I look up. What she said is either BS or someone at another store ignoring policy. Either way, doesn't matter. I'm sorry, ma'am. It's company policy. I left it in my car and I don't want to walk all the way back out there. Ma'am, it's company policy. There's nothing I can do. This is the point at which Karen shows her true colors. She screams at me, and I quote, "Well then you have shove it," and flips me off before stomping out like a 3-year-old. I just stood there for a moment in complete shock. The combination of the rate of escalation, the situation went from 0 to nuclear in about 15 seconds, and the sheer absurdity just absolutely stunned me. Fortunately, my mask hid my open jaw. About 30 seconds after, Karen stormed out. Another customer, who was an absolute delight, came up to me and we shared a silent moment of what the fuck just happened. She needed to pick up an order as well, and unlike Karen, was perfectly happy to show ID. We had a nice exchange and she went on her way. Now my manager Andrea comes over, obviously not her real name. Andrea knows me and knows I wouldn't duck up on a galactic scale like Karen seemed to think. Anyway, after I finished with not a whole customer, Andrea came up to me and asked me what had happened with Karen. I explained, and right as I was finishing, Andrea gets a call on the store phone. Here's where the petty revenge comes in. It is, of course, Karen. Having not picked up her packages due to her temper tantrum, she now wants an employee to bring them out to her car. Standard stuff, we do this about half a dozen times a day. So I put on the reflective vest, grab her packages, and go out to her car. She rolls down her window and is obviously upset that it's me delivering the packages. May I see your ID? I say through my most poo-eating grin. She huffs and puffs enough to blow down a house but hands it over. I look at it, confirm it's her, and then hand it back. Then, on a whim, I say, "I'm sorry, I need to see it again." "What? 2 packages? Sorry, it's company policy." Now, this is complete B Street. I only needed to see it once. I just wanted to upset her. "No, it's not," I shrug. "Sorry. Company policy." She huffs and puffs some more but hands it over. I glance down at it and then hand it back with her packages. Have a nice day. Next one is titled, "You Ruined My Vacation, I Make You Pay." When I was a junior in college, my roommate Bob checked his campus mailbox and found a summons for jury duty, ordering him to report on the first day of spring break. He was freaking out because a bunch of us had already made reservations for a trip to Florida. I told him not to worry. The county sends summonses to students all the time. It had happened to me the previous year. I went to the dean, who sent a standard letter to the presiding judge explaining that serving on a jury would have a severe adverse impact on my education. I was excused. But we had new dean. He told Bob that since the summons was for spring break, there was no valid reason why he shouldn't serve. Bob told him about the trip we had planned and the non-refundable plane tickets. The dean was not impressed. He told Bob it was his civic duty to serve. Then Bob tried Plan B. He lived in Massachusetts. He called the jury clerk and argued that he was not a resident of New Jersey. The clerk said he would have to show up in the appointed time, with proof of his residency, and make his argument to the judge. Of course, by then it would be too late. We all took off for Florida, leaving Bob in an empty dorm with no dining hall. Bob reported to the county courthouse that Monday morning and was assigned to a criminal case. After a few days they voted to convict. Since we were attending a state university, Bob, like all out-of-state students, paid twice as much for tuition as I did. When classes resumed, he went to the bursar's office and asked for a refund. The bursar laughed in his face, but did agree to write a letter stating that as far as the state of New Jersey was concerned, Bob was a resident of Massachusetts. His next stop was the county prosecutor. Bob showed him the letter from the bursar and suggested that the defense attorney might be interested to know that one of the jurors who just convicted his client was not eligible to serve. The prosecutor took him to the judge's chambers, where Bob produced his driver's license, draft card, passport and voter registration card, all of which said he lived in Massachusetts. The judge sent home and asked him not to discuss the matter with anyone. About 2 weeks later, Bob received a check for the excess tuition, retroactive to freshman year. And he paid in state tuition for the rest of his time in school. He graduated and moved back to Massachusetts. And the county stopped sending jury duty summonses to campus mailboxes. Next one is titled, "Grumpy Old Neighbors Get Free Landscape Art for Summer." I'm 40, so this is circa 1989. Old next-door neighbors were classic grumpy old people that for some reason moved into a new neighborhood full of young families. The type that would keep our ball if it went over the fence. They spent all day taking care of their perfect lawn, and watching us, and screaming at any kids who stepped foot on it. They also hated that a lot of neighborhood kids would congregate at our house. My dad painted hockey lines on the street, dead-end cul-de-sac, for huge pickup games of hockey, and also a lot of skateboarding. We built a quarter pipe that we kept at the curb, and even more, kids started hanging out. One morning it was smashed in, and our other neighbor, another old man who liked kids, told our dad that he saw our neighbor smash the ramp with his hand truck. So we took a gasoline can, and wrote dicks on their lawn in like 6 feet letters, in gasoline, which killed the grass and remained burned into their lawn for most of the summer, because the gas wouldn't grow on the gas lines. Needless to say, the feud persisted through my entire childhood. Next one is titled, Manipulative Ex Got Sent to an Inpatient Psych Ward. Dated a guy when I was about 18 or 19 years old. So like 20 years ago, I still lived with my mum and he still lived with his parents. We only dated about 5 to 6 months, but he quickly became controlling and manipulative. It was before cell phones were common, but everyone had caller ID. I had gone out for a girls' night with some friends and came home to see that he'd called me 48 times and left me 8 messages in a 5-hour period demanding me to call him right back to let him know where I was and what I was doing. Red flag, and I was just over him anyway, so I called him back and told him we were breaking up. He turns into his totally manipulative mode, which he'd done before, saying that he would kill himself without me. I knew it was total BS, this was his way of controlling crap and he was a pathological liar. So, I hit record on my answering machine and got a copy of the rest of the conversation and told him I was really worried and didn't want him to do that. He pounced on the opportunity to keep up the manipulation as he thought he had me on the hook. I told him I was really worried about him, and that I was heading over to his house, 30 minutes away. As soon as I hung up, I called the police and played the conversation with the 911 operator, and told her that he really needed help. 2 a.m. and 2 police officers show up at his home and ring the doorbell, waking up his parents. They tell his parents that he's suicidal and they need to take him in for observation. He tells his parents that the police are lying and he's fine and has no idea what's going on. They play the recording for his parents, who are terrified because they had no idea that their son is suicidal, and sign off for him to go to an inpatient psych ward. He was there for 10 days, and I never heard from him again. But I do still stalk him on Facebook occasionally and see he has 2 kids and 2 ex-wives, and a poor current partner. Feel bad for all of them, but glad I dodged that bullet. Hope it at least made him think twice about faking crap again, but I doubt it. Next one is titled, I Waited Years, and Had the Best Revenge of My Life. So way back in junior high school I had a best friend who was my neighbor. Let's call her Michelle. Michelle was cool but her family was crazy. Her mother, psycho witch, PB, had some definite disconnect with reality. This will be important later. Michelle was the oldest of 6 children. Her next sibling, a year younger than me, we will call Crazy Hooligan, CH. Now, CH was known throughout the neighborhood and school for being a right little a-hole. Vandalism, pranks, low-level stuff would happen. We all knew was him, but he was smart enough to know what could get him in trouble and what couldn't. As he grew, his behavior escalated. His favorite thing to do to Michelle was walk by her and whisper, "Incest's the best," under his breath. He was a royal creep to any female that he came across, and had a special hatred for his sister's friends. When Michelle moved on to high school, I was a year behind her. I was stuck in that school with CH. I didn't have that many friends and was a shy, timid girl. CH decided to use every possible opportunity to harass me, knocking my books down, grabbing me, saying incredibly sexual things to me. This was the 90s and before the schools took sexual harassment complaints seriously, and he never did it when around other people, so I had to endure. For 2 years, I endured. Now, Michelle's mum, PB, had some very interesting ideas. When Michelle was about 16, PB thought she was going through menopause and so insisted on having another child because she was too young for menopause, and I guess she thought that it would hold off on the menopause. At Michelle's birthday, I found a $20 on the street outside. I was ecstatic because I was saving for a leather jacket and my mother was matching, so that was $40 to my jacket. Michelle was happy for me, but PB insisted I give it to Michelle because it was her birthday, even though Michelle said she didn't want it. She browbeat me until I gave in despite Michelle's protests. Michelle, bless her heart, slipped it to me after. PB was witching about CH's behavior one day, and I suggested military school. "Oh, no," she said. "Military school makes you gay." She told me one time that if a gay person sneezed on you, you would get AIDS. I didn't tell her my sister was gay. After I moved on to high school, CH couldn't harass me anymore. So he went nuclear. He told his mother that I, and another of Michelle's close friends, were gay. The woman went ballistic. The next time I called, I got a screaming tirade of the most vile swear words I have heard to this day. At least I wasn't the other girl. PB tried to run her over with her car. Like drove up on the curb and everything. Girl had to jump out of the way to keep from getting hit. No witnesses, and oh, did I mention that PB's ex, her older kid's dad, was high up in the police department? So this woman could do what she wanted. Well, they sold their house and moved, because PB couldn't stand living next to a lesbian, claiming it wasn't safe with the kids and all. Eye roll. Michelle and I lose touch, since we don't go to the same school and PB monitors everything she does. So I lose a good friend over this, don't make new ones until I switch schools for 11th grade. Fast forward many years. I am out of school, working at a grocery store. Who do I come across but CH? Works in produce. We both smoke, so we bump into each other often. He treats me like an old friend for some reason, and I am well versed in getting vengeance years after a crime. I play nice, biding my time, and formulate a plan. Having gone to school to hone my natural talents in psychology, I can pretty quickly zero in on people's weakest spots. Little comments here and there let me know that his mother's fear and hatred of gay people have taken root in him. So my plan is set. Phase 1. When he complains one day about gay people, I put the act on. I stuff out my CIG in frustration. CH, just stop. Everyone knows you are gay. They just won't admit it. We all talk about it. It's obvious. There isn't anything wrong with it. Just admit it. Now, no one thought he was gay. No one talked about it. But how do you prove people aren't talking about you behind your back? The more they deny it, the more paranoid you get. Every little thing becomes evidence. And suddenly, I am the only person in his life who will be honest with him. Or so I want him to think. He, of course, blinks like a deer in the headlights, and stammers that he is not gay. He's a dandy, so I point out his meticulous hair, nails, clothes. How he is always clean. He is a tidy person. I know he cooks well because he used to cook for the family. I basically throw out every gay stereotype I possibly can tie to him. The cherry on the top is I tell him he just gives off a vibe. I tell him this a few times, over several weeks, give him something to think about. Phase 2. Then I have my gay friends start coming into the store and hitting on him. Every time, without fail, he would run to me and ask why it was happening. I told you, it's a vibe. I dunno, you just seem gay. I had female friends come in, chat him up, then mention he would be perfect for their guy friend. He threw himself into dating. But he still kept getting hit on, imagine that. Grew out his hair, stopped manicuring his nails, dressed sloppier. Nothing worked. Then one day he saw two women kissing. He witched about it and I said, "Oh, CH, now I know you are gay." He was confused and I explained how every straight man ever loved watching two hot chicks together. Now, I am sure some straight guys don't want to see this. However, I was confident enough that with the good old boy crowd he ran with, that would be normal. He confirmed it with his friends and became morose. Phase 3. Completion. Then it came the day I had been waiting for. At this point, I was his confidant, his confessor, his therapist. I wasn't particularly nice about it, so I still don't know why he told me this. But CH came to me one day and told me that at a party the night before he got drunk and made out with a guy. Now, I know making out with a guy doesn't make you gay. In CH's world, though, it most certainly did make you gay. I stared at him for like half a minute, mouth hanging open, then started laughing. Laughing and laughing and laughing. As I laughed, I told him I had been messing with him. That I had sent my friends in. That everything I said about him being gay wasn't true, but now it was. He really was gay, I hadn't realized it. His face crumpled. I stopped laughing and reminded him of the hell he had put me through for years, how he caused me to lose my best friend. I told him I was not his friend, had never been his friend. I also let him know that we were even. It was over. He respected that, and didn't try and get me back. We still spoke off and on, and I was always cordial. He left not long after. Never heard from him again. Still makes me happy. Next one is titled, Mum Who Married for Money Though She Won But She Really Didn't. My mum married this much older guy clearly for his money. After his cash started drying up, she soon got bored. One day she argued with him over something really stupid, about him not washing the dishes, and said she was off for a few days to her daughter's, my sister. She came back a week later to find he had packed her bags, changed the locks, and without a bother told her to get lost, which completely backfired on her. She then somehow emptied his bank account, a few £100, and she started telling family and friends he hit her, and often, which I assure you he didn't. A month or so later she was clearly regretting the shitty stuff she did. Went over to his house to try and make amends, only to find out his young Thai bride had moved in. My mother flipped, tried to attack them both and even tried to stab him. During the divorce, he offers her a $5,000 settlement as technically they were married when his new lady friend moved in. Mother, thinking this was the last of his cash, agreed. Assuming she had the last laugh, she was pretty happy with herself until she found out he had sold up some investment for $200,000 she had no idea about, and shipped off to Thailand to live happily ever after with his new wife. Last one is titled, Make Our Staff Cry. No food for you. I work in a well-known build your sandwich to order shop where everyone wears a lot of green. Yesterday I had a customer come in, he had his headphones in the whole time, which is automatically irritating. Just as I popped his sub in the toaster, one of my colleagues comes over to tell me this is the guy who made Jane cry and complained to higher ups about Harry, and to refuse service if he ever comes back. Great. So I intend to finish him up as fast as possible, get rid of him, but I can't hear half of what he asks for as salad, so I ask him to repeat himself and he starts mocking me. Instead of speaking up like a normal human being, he mouths the words instead, repeatedly. So I dumped his sandwich in the bin and told him to leave. And when he threw a hissy, my manager told him to leave too, or we would call the police. I was trembling for a good hour afterwards, but it felt so good. Thanks for listening.